A stunning new report from the Washington Post on intelligence describing Vladimir Putin's direct involvement in the cyber attacks with one goal in mind: make sure Hillary Clinton lost and Donald Trump won. Also, a remarkable behind-the-scenes look at how then-President Obama did and did not respond, including a direct face-to-face confrontation between Presidents Obama and Putin, with Mr. Obama telling him to stop or else. Joining us now is Adam Entous, staff writer at the Washington Post, part of the team that broke this story. Adam, thank you so much for being with us. This story, which I commend everyone to read right now, begins with a remarkable account of an envelope being delivered to the White House with intelligence inside about Vladimir Putin directing hacks into the U.S. election.
Right. So basically what happened is the CIA sent this very sensitive document by courier to the White House. It was clearly instructed to be given only to a select group of the president and his top advisors, for their eyes only. After they read the document, they were instructed to put it back in the envelope, send it back to Langley via courier as soon as they finished reading it. It was that sensitive. This was so sensitive, in fact, that the initial meetings excluded some very senior top officials, including the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense. That's how sensitive this was, and how restricted this information was held within the Obama administration.
And this intelligence, which you note is stunning from where it came from, the sources within inside Russia, said what? That Vladimir Putin was directing attacks to hurt Hillary Clinton and to help Donald Trump.
That's right. And specifically what happened here is the CIA obtained the precise instruction from Putin. So this again came from a very sensitive source of information. We are withholding some details of that per request of the CIA and other government agencies that want to, of course, protect their ability to continue to get that kind of information. And so what this was as close to a smoking gun evidence as you can get. And yet it really wasn't enough for Obama and his top aides. So they instructed the CIA to work with the NSA and work with the FBI to come up with what's known as a high confidence assessment, which does not actually come together until late September.
And that, of course, is another big part of what is so fascinating about the article today, is what the Obama administration did and did not do. And in some cases now there's deep regret over what they did not do among some Democrats, among some people in the White House. One source quoting to your article, "It's the hardest thing about my entire time in government to defend. I feel like we sort of choked." That's from a former senior Obama administration official. Adam, what does he mean, or she mean?
Well, I mean, what that person means is that, you know, from where he was sitting, it looked like more could have and should have been done sooner. But when you know, you have to keep in mind here that this was very complex. Obama wanted to avoid what he saw as a worst-case scenario, which would be that the Russians actually intervened to try to actually affect the voting itself on Election Day, on or before Election Day. So that was the priority. So he didn't want to retaliate before the election for fear any retaliation would just provoke Putin to make things worse. So then they decided to go after the election, and when they started having this debate over what to do, of course you had different institutions, State Department, CIA, the Treasury Department. They all wanted to kind of protect their own equities in this. So the result was kind of a more watering down approach, which required Susan Rice in a key meeting to basically say, stop bickering among yourselves. Let's settle on this package. That said, that package, by pretty much all accounts, could be called modest in its impact and largely symbolic, because in the end, there really wasn't much that the Obama administration could do in terms of sanctions that wouldn't have blowback effects that would affect either U.S. businesses or European allies.
And before the election, Adam, you note there was pushback, not just from the states when the administration tried to reach out to state election officials to try to warn them what was going on. There was some curiosity, some perhaps doubts there, but also pushback from within Congress. Mitch McConnell, which we sort of knew going in, Mitch McConnell, he didn't trust this intelligence.
Right, and so what happened in August and early September is Brennan, with this intelligence, is making the rounds of what's known as the Gang of Eight. These are the top 8 members of Congress that get access to the most sensitive intelligence. When they went to go see the Democrats, it was easy to sell them on this intelligence. When Brennan saw Paul Ryan, in comparison to McConnell, Ryan was receptive. He was very concerned about what the Russians were doing. He believed the intelligence community on that score. McConnell, on the other hand, was incredibly skeptical. In fact, his skepticism back then in August and early September can be you can see it as very similar to what we hear from Trump today, which is that he thought potentially it was politicized for the sake of helping Hillary Clinton. When McConnell did that, the message to the Obama team was whatever they decided to do going forward on this, it would be seen as partisan, that they were going to be attacked by the Republicans of trying to help Hillary no matter what they did.
And we heard that from Jay Johnson in his testimony this week. They were afraid of the political implications of coming forward. You describe a face-to-face confrontation between President Obama and President Putin. What was said? What was the effect?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a confrontation. I mean, certainly it was a discussion that was heated. They didn't obviously come to blows, but what the president said was effectively knock it off or else. The threat there was that the U.S. would do something very serious to the Russian economy. Putin responds to the president by saying we weren't doing anything. Basically saying that there's nothing here. You're accusing the wrong guy. Now, this is at a point in time when the administration is trying to prevent the Russians from actually intervening in the vote. And the president's takeaway from that encounter, when they looked at the intelligence that followed that encounter, was that Russia did not escalate. Of course, at that point, the damage, if you will, had already been done because the emails had already been taken from democratic institutions and had already been leaked to WikiLeaks and had started to be released at that point.
The propaganda campaign was done if it stopped anything, and we can't be sure it did. If it stopped anything, maybe it stopped the Russians from directly meddling with vote counts and the like. Finally, your story goes into some measures that the president took in the waning days. These digital bombs, cyber implants going forward. Explain what they are.
Yeah, so towards the end, in addition to the public sanctions that were announced, that's the expulsion of the diplomats that was announced, the closure of the 2 facilities that was announced, the president made a public statement in which he alluded to actions that would be taken but not announced at a time and place of the U.S.'s choosing. He was alluding there to 2 things. One was an operation that was conducted to basically show the Russians that the U.S. had a capability on the cyber side as a warning to them, not to try this again. Secondly, he signed a covert finding which authorized the CIA, the NSA, and Cyber Command to basically put in place these little implants, maybe little's not the right word, to put these implants in place that potentially could be set off in future in order to basically, again, deter the Russians from doing this. Keep in mind here, this is a finding that basically stays in effect unless Trump basically issues a second order to remove it. So unless Trump acts to remove this finding by Obama, it stays in effect.
Now, that's fascinating. Do we have any evidence yet that the current President Trump, has countermanded this effort as of now?
As far as we know, the answer to that is no. We know the administration, the Trump administration, has been negotiating with the Russians over potentially giving them access to those 2 facilities that Obama shut down. But we have seen nothing. None of our sources have told us anything about any change in that covert finding.
And of course, it'd be hard to get answers directly from any administration on something like that, but it is interesting to wonder what they will do going forward. Adam Entous, a terrific report in the Washington Post, is posted online right now. Thank you so much for coming on with us. Appreciate it.
No, thank you very much.